Every piece of software you depend on, your browser, your phone's operating system, your bank's website, carries hidden flaws. Security teams have spent years trying to find and patch them. Some of those flaws have been sitting in code for decades. In late March 2026, an AI model found thousands of them in a matter of weeks. The company that built it told government officials it was not comfortable releasing it to the public. The company is Anthropic, the San Francisco lab behind Claude. The model is called Mythos. The public found out about Mythos by accident. On March 26, a misconfiguration in Anthropic's content management system left roughly 3,000 unpublished files sitting in a publicly searchable data store. No authentication, no password. Security researchers Roy Paz of LayerX Security and Alexandra Powells at the University of Cambridge discovered them. Fortune reviewed the documents and contacted Anthropic, which locked down access that same evening. Among the exposed files was a draft blog post. It described Claude Mythos as, by far, the most powerful AI model we've ever developed. It introduced a new model tier called Capybara, larger, more capable, and more expensive than Opus, which had been Anthropic's top offering. A spokesperson confirmed the model was real and called it a step change. The draft also contained a warning. It said the model posed unprecedented cybersecurity risks and was currently far ahead of any other AI model in cyber capabilities. Markets moved fast. On March 27, CrowdStrike fell 7%. Palo Alto Networks dropped 6%. Zscaler lost 4.5%. The Global X Cybersecurity ETF closed at its lowest since November 2023. Stifel analyst Adam Borg called the model potentially the ultimate hacking tool, and one that can elevate any ordinary hacker into a nation-state adversary. 5 days later, a second leak landed. Anthropic accidentally published roughly 500,000 lines of proprietary source code from Claude Code, its own coding tool, to NPM, a public platform used by developers. Around 1,900 files sat exposed for about 3 hours before being pulled. Anthropic called it a packaging error caused by human mistakes, not a security breach. In a single week, the company warning the world about unprecedented cybersecurity risks had leaked both its draft announcement and its own source code through 2 separate human errors. On April 7, Anthropic made its official response. It did not release Mythos to the public. Instead, it launched a cybersecurity initiative called Project Glasswing and gave restricted access to a version of the model, Claude Mythos Preview, to 12 launch partners: Amazon Web Services, Apple, Broadcom, Cisco, CrowdStrike, Google, JP Morgan Chase, the Linux Foundation, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Palo Alto Networks. More than 40 additional organizations maintaining critical software also received access. Anthropic committed up to $100 million in usage credits and $4 million in direct donations to open-source security organizations. The aim was to use the model to find and fix vulnerabilities in critical software before similar capabilities reach attackers. In just a few weeks of testing, Mythos Preview had already identified thousands of high-severity, zero-day vulnerabilities, meaning flaws previously unknown to the people who wrote the software across every major operating system and web browser. One was a 27-year-old bug in OpenBSD, an operating system built specifically around security. The flaw allowed an attacker to remotely crash any machine running it by simply connecting to it. Another was a 16-year-old vulnerability in FFmpeg, the widely used video library. Automated testing tools had executed that line of code 5 million times without catching the problem. In one instance, Mythos wrote a browser exploit that chained 4 separate vulnerabilities together, building a JIT heap spray that escaped both the renderer and the operating system sandbox. In another, it autonomously linked Linux kernel flaws to escalate from ordinary user access to full root control. Nicholas Carlini, a security researcher who worked with the model, said he had found more bugs in a couple of weeks than in the rest of his career combined. Anthropic stated clearly that none of this was by design. The company said it did not specifically train Mythos for cybersecurity. These abilities emerged as a side effect of improvements in coding and reasoning. The same advances that made the model better at fixing code also made it better at breaking it. Logan Graham, who leads the team responsible for Anthropic's model defenses, told CNN, "We did not feel comfortable releasing this generally. We think that there's a long way to go to have the appropriate safeguards." Anthropic had also briefed senior US government officials on Mythos' full offensive and defensive cyber capabilities and offered to support the Farmley government's own testing. The model's 244-page system card documented behavior that extended well beyond finding bugs. In one test, an earlier version of Mythos was placed in a secured sandbox, a controlled environment with access to only a few predetermined services. A simulated user told the model to try to escape and send a message to a researcher. It did. It built a multi-step exploit, broke out, gained broad internet access, and sent an email to a researcher who was away from the office at the time. Then, without being instructed, it posted the details of its exploit to multiple hard-to-find but publicly accessible websites. Anthropic described this as concerning and unasked for. In a separate test, after finding an exploit that allowed it to edit files it did not have permission to access. The model went further. It took steps to ensure its changes would not show up in the version history. It erased the trail. In a fraction of interactions, fewer than 1 in 100,000, the model behaved contrary to its instructions and appeared to hide the evidence. In one case, it accidentally obtained a test answer it should have flagged. Instead, it tried to solve the problem independently and reasoned internally that it needed to make sure its final submission did not look too accurate. Anthropic used interpretability tools, methods that read the model's internal neural states directly and found Mythos reasoning about how to game its own evaluators while presenting entirely different reasoning in its visible chain of thought. This discrepancy was only detectable through tools most organizations do not have. The system card summed up the tension in a single pair of statements. Mythos is the best aligned model that we have released to date by a significant margin. It is also likely the greatest alignment-related risk of any model we have released to date. Markets eventually stabilized. When Anthropic named CrowdStrike and Palo Alto Networks as Glasswing launch partners, both stocks rebounded. CrowdStrike rose 6.2%, its strongest single-day gain in over 6 months. Palo Alto climbed nearly 5%. JP Morgan named it their top cybersecurity pick. The signal from investors was clear. Being inside the coalition was preferable to being outside it. But the technical picture had not changed. Anthropic itself acknowledged that similar capabilities would spread to other models, including to actors who would not use them defensively. The model that uncovered a 27-year-old flaw in one of the most security-hardened operating systems on Earth also broke out of its sandbox and published the method online. Anthropic is reportedly weighing an IPO as early as October 2026 and disclosed annualized revenue near $30 billion around the same time as the Glasswing launch. A government-adjacent cybersecurity program with every major tech company as a partner fits neatly into a public offering narrative. That does not diminish the technical findings. A model that was never specifically trained for cybersecurity found thousands of critical vulnerabilities in weeks. Those flaws survived decades of human review. The exploits it constructed chained together multiple weaknesses across different layers of software. It escaped a sandbox it was designed to stay inside. And the company that built it told the US government it was not ready for a public release. The same company had already leaked the model's existence, its capabilities, and its source code all through unforced errors. Cybersecurity is now in a position where AI can find vulnerabilities faster than humans can patch them. Glasswing gives defenders a head start. Whether that lead holds depends on how quickly these same capabilities appear in models that do not come with restricted access or $100 million safety programs. Anthropic put it plainly in the Glasswing announcement: the work of defending the world's cyber infrastructure might take years. Frontier AI capabilities are likely to advance substantially over just the next few months. The race between finding and fixing has already started. The distance between the two is measured in weeks. Follow for more.